things leak through and we react to that information and that energy that's coming through to us without considering it. We're just reacting. And that perpetuates a process of reaction, meaning we don't have agency over the situation at all. We're just like, this information is coming in and my information is going out. And it's just a cycle, right? It's a cycle of destruction or definitely not productive or in any way. And and it usually is a spiral, right? Because no one ever took the time to exit the spiral. So one way to exit that spiral and that cycle is just to become curious, like to be curious without an agenda. And when we approach any situation with that curiosity, it changes the whole entire framework of the way we're receiving the information, meaning we're not reacting anymore to the information because we first need to learn about the information.
There are episodes that get conceptual, and then there are episodes that go straight to the heart of what's holding people back. Today's guest brings that rare combination of deep insight and practical tools to help you shift your mindset, reclaim your energy, and build the life and business you actually want.
We're excited to get in the Champions Corner with Dovid Azerad. Dovid is an energy management coach who works with high performing leaders to break through stalled team performance and unlock their full potential. With a background in education and school leadership, David discovered his unique gift for helping others step into their zone of genius and developed a framework to guide them there with clarity, confidence, and purpose.
In this episode, we unpack why most people confuse learning with progress and how to start taking real action, how fear, self doubt, and a lack of agency quietly sabotage your goals, and the daily mindset shifts that will help you stay present, productive, and powerful, even when life throws you curveballs.
If you ever struggled with overthinking, burnout, and feeling stuck, especially while juggling a W 2 job and building a side hustle, this conversation is packed with insights you don't want to miss.
And if you're looking for the best kept secret of real estate, one that's simple to start, easy to scale, and delivers unmatched returns, check out our Flipping Dirt coaching program. We'll show you how to flip vacant land and build cash flow without the headaches of tenants, toilets, or termites. Learn more at flippingdirt.us.
Now let's step into the arena and hear from David Azerad.
David, thanks for joining us on the podcast today. We're excited to dig into high performance and mindset and all the good things that we like to talk about there.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be on.
Yeah, great. As a starting off point, I guess for people who aren't familiar with you, maybe give us a brief background and how you got into coaching and high performance.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career in education. I started off as a classroom teacher. I moved into the administrative role and became a principal. And a lot of my experience and a lot of the skills that I've built up came through that educational space and helping kids, helping their teachers as I grew into this administrative role to really help them to find agency, to be meaning, to really be able to find the control over their circumstances. And even in situations where they really didn't have a lot of that control and helping them to feel good about themselves as they grew and to really build that growth mentality and growth mindset, as Carol Dweck very famously put out there. And then as I started working with the adults and the parents and the community of the school, meaning local vendors, local store owners, local
Mm.
politicians, even, I would ask them a lot of questions and it would just, I don't know, things would happen and it would work and people loved it. And I loved it. I love helping people. So it was, so to me, seemed like a natural progression going from children to adults and just bringing it full circle.
I love that. It's a beautiful story. I myself resonate with that because in 2016, I had a life transition, career transition. Lidge and I both did. It's how we got into land investing. But in that space, I took time to explore. I had a coach that was helping me work through what I wanted my next chapter to look like. And coaching is a big part of really what drives me. And when I'm really reflective about my true desired state, I love working with youth. I just think there's something so inspiring about getting in early and planting these seeds, helping with self confidence, giving people the tools to grow, and their minds are so pliable at that age that, so yeah, I really enjoy the concept of giving people that firm foundation. It's not impossible, but as they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. It does get harder as we get older. Now I'm talking in my own fixed mindset, speaking of Carol Dweck, but it's a fact that I think children are like sponges and they just more readily soak up and absorb a lot of these concepts. Not that it can't be taught and grown as an adult.
Absolutely. Frederick Douglass actually has a fantastic quote that I forgot. So I hope I'm saying this right, but it's been a while since I was in the school. But I tell this to all the teachers all the time. I put it on the bulletin board. It's much easier to build strong children than to repair broken men.
Oh, yes. Lovely.
Very true.
Love that. Yeah. That's great. I like that. And yeah, so it sounds like you found resonance early on in your career with, I saw somebody write a phrase today or yesterday that you were operating in your zone of genius, but however you want to phrase it, you resonated with certain activities that you were doing, be it in the classroom or in the community or other things. And it also sounds like the community resonated with you in terms of we're enjoying what you did. At some point along that journey, you decided to make that a formal vocation, pursue that formally.
Yes. It's very interesting because teaching is really coaching. A lot of I can go on and on. I love talking about this, and it's really not the topic. But teachers, a lot of times people feel that the teacher's job is to input information into the child. But really, the teacher's job is to inspire the children to want to continue learning.
Mm,
That's their job. So they're really coaches. They're there to take the child, and there's many tactics and many forms of doing this, but the gradual release method is a very famous in the educational space way of teaching. And that's really what a coach, in my opinion, is doing. They're helping people see a place where they can go. They help them build that foundation for themselves and slowly but surely help them to create that reality for themselves, or now they're doing it on their own. And that is the same thing. It's just putting it in different contexts. It's using similar principles, and it's just one is learning math and one is learning more about yourself or learning more about the business or learning more about whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish with your vision.
That is so true. I remember when I was a child and a teenager
where
that
was
I
this?
in Romania.
Uh-huh.
I remember I hated some classes, but really I hated the teachers, which hate is a strong word, but back then that's how I internalized it. I disliked those teachers so much. And I couldn't agree with you more. I think the teacher, and then I loved some of the classes because of the teachers. They had a way to really inspire us to love and want to learn more about the expertise subject. So,
You can almost
Mhm.
speak to anyone, I think, and they can recall super impactful teachers along their journey. So I appreciate your framing of teachers as coaches and guides. I believe that's the way it should be. I don't believe that's the way it always is. I think there are different personalities, and those different personalities accumulate different skill sets and aptitudes. And then they work within a system that incentivizes or even mandates certain styles, right? It all comes down to leadership. And I know you deal with a lot of leaders in leadership and teams, but there can be those that are command and control. You do this is the only way you do it. This is not only what you do, this is how you do it. And then there's other environments where there is more latitude and people are taught. Because I also believe in this way. And there's so much labeling and diagnoses in our society, but the fact of the matter is, we all have slightly different learning styles. And it may not be that we're slow or we have a disorder. We may just be a visual learner versus a tactical or a tactile learner or different things. And I think really good teachers also are very aware of understanding that different humans respond differently. Some are okay with rote memorization and doing the work to get things done. Others need a different path. And so I do think there's a lot of opportunity in the education space to make more of a difference. I think there's a it seems like there's a lot of desire in the society for things to be reinvented and different in the education space. I don't know if it'll go in a better direction or a worse direction, but at least the willingness, it seems to be there.
Yeah, it's a very challenging field to benchmark and to create an environment where success is even possible to the truth of what education is. I could geek out about education all day long, but putting standardizing tests, right, and making everything into a test score is removing what education is really supposed to be about. If we will go under the premise that education is about creating people that want to be lifelong learners, and then telling them, no, actually, you have to remember this information, even if you don't like it, even if you don't care, and we're forcing you now, we're managing you to do this, then it's like, maybe I don't want to learn so much anymore. I hate this. I'm not critiquing, like, it's not my role as I'm not the director, I'm not the head of
Yeah.
the Department of Education in the United States, but it's my observations as someone that was in the educational space. But I do see the fallout later on in life, and that's something that's very unfortunate. If we would go on the journey of a child, right? The child is born, they get whatever they want, and they get it because they want it. They have agency. They like, I want food. Wah, I want food. You get the food. I want to learn how to do things. They just go and learn it, right? No one's telling them yes or no. Then suddenly people, their parents, which is important, tell them, yes, no, you can have you have to eat dinner now. You have to go to the bath. You have to brush your teeth. You have to do this. You have to do that. And the child's like, I hate my life, but it is what it is. And they adapt, but how do they adapt? By just removing agency off of themselves, relinquishing it and giving it back to the parents saying, parent me, parent, you parent me. That's great. Then they go to school. It's like, take the test, study. Here's recess time. No talking. Sit down. Again, zero agency. And they people have a need to be autonomous in some sense. That's also something guided autonomy. I love talking about that too. But and then when they grow up, they forget that there is a possibility of agency. So they grow up and they become a teenager and they're still being told what to do. Then they become an adult. And a lot of people go into the W2 space, which is fine. A lot of times they're just being told what to do. And that life journey might never bother them, which is totally fine. But then some people are like, I really want to do what I do and I want to take ownership and leadership, and they don't know how because that skill is still on the level of a 3-year-old. So like they have to learn that skill of agency of what does that look like in a way that's empowering for you and healthy and relational to everyone around you. And that's a really big challenge for a lot of people.
It is, and it's very evident as you narrate it, the way, that we evolve and unfold from children into adults and how that agency gets taken away. I love the word agency, by the way. That's one of my favorite
And
words.
this is very fascinating. I'm really curious and I cannot wait to hear how do you help people reclaim that agency? Because of all these years where, to your point, we are told what to do and we become adults and we're still told what to do. And then all of a sudden, if we want to like really press a reset button and ask ourselves, what do we want to do in life? We don't know even how to go about it. Like, how do you help people reclaim that agency?
I can geek out and tell you the meta level of what it is, or I could just tell you the process. I would rather go into the meta level just because I geek out about it and I love it. So you're standing in a house, right? You're standing in a room, and no one notices that you're there. No one's noticing that you're there. Everyone's walking around, they're walking around, they're not noticing you. What do you need to do in order to be noticed? You need to get attention, right? But what if they've learned to ignore you? They've learned to ignore you. They're like, that person yells, okay, whatever. We don't need to listen. Everyone inside, and you called it a zone of genius, but if you go into any culture, there is this concept of it's you can call it yourself, the empowered part of you, the Tao, the soul, the spark, whatever it is you want to call it, it's inside of every one of us, and we tell it to be quiet. We're like, we don't have agency. Stop telling us to manifest. We can't do this. So the first step that I help people do is pay attention. Listen to your heart. A good song, right? Listen to it, right? You have to pay attention. And in the beginning, it's really challenging because we're not used to it. So like it'll flip through and then it'll flip through and then it'll flip through. And we're just like, nah, I don't trust this void that's inside of me. I don't trust this part of me. And after a while of doing this work where it's let's learn to trust yourself, suddenly you take on a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And at the end of the process, what happens is that this voice that was always told to be quiet, this part of you that's this zone of genius, this zone of genius is that feeling that you have when you're completely present and in full agency. So when you have that full agency, what's really happening is that you are in complete awareness and control over yourself and the way that you take in information and relate to people around. So that's the result. You're just completely present. You're not feeling anything else, meaning any feelings of anger or resentment or anything like that. Not because people aren't doing things that are used to bother you a lot. Like I, for example, I have a very big ego. Okay. I'll just put it out there. I have a big ego. Like really, if we flip it, I have a low self-esteem. And which is the same two sides of the coin. And when anybody would ever do something to me when I was a teacher in the classroom, if a student would call out or a student would do something, I would just like immediately feel rage. I would just feel inner rage. Like I didn't scream at them. But inside I was like burning. I was like, how dare you interrupt my lesson? Like, what are you thinking? I didn't say that, but I really felt it. Really. Now, if I go into a classroom and a child interrupts, like I've had a child tell me to shut up and I just look at him and I go, this literally happened. The child was like, shut up. And I looked at him and I said, that's not a nice way to speak to your teacher. And that was it. Like I was the end of it. And like the child felt a little silly. The whole class was just like in shock. That was my reaction. And everything, we just moved on and it was very relational. Like the whole thing was very relational. Like I didn't get insulted. Like when in the past I would have flipped out. I would be like, how dare you speak? Who do you think you are to tell me, the teacher, to shut up? So like that change happens when you're like your own guide over your, so meaning you have full agency. Take it all back. But it's a process, but that's the work that has to be done to keep paying attention and keep paying attention and keep paying attention and be aware. There are tools to get into there. We can talk about that process.
And I have one more question about this. You mentioned in the beginning the analogy of being in a room where nobody notices you. Is it one of the secrets of really reclaiming agency, this aspect that you don't need to be noticed by people anymore? Like you go through this phase where you just want to notice yourself first, and then you become comfortable with who you are, and you don't have that big need for to to draw attention to yourself or be noticed by people.
That's a very it's a very good point. I really like the way that you phrase that. Like you made that connection between noticing yourself and other people noticing you. There are stages that people go to, but at the end of the process, you can sit, you will always be comfortable because it's a very interesting feeling. Like it's hard to explain the feeling if someone never had the feeling, but people have taste of the feeling, but the feeling is literally just being content and it's not complacent. It's not, I'm stuck in this situation. Not that. I am happy where I am because I choose to be here, whatever the situation is. Because if I didn't choose to be here, I wouldn't be here. And I have that agency to decide that. So if somebody, let's say, and you gave the example to be noticed, what that's probably something coming up from when the person was younger. I don't want to get into the psychology of it, but I think it's pretty classic of a result. Somebody that wasn't noticed when they were younger, they need to be noticed now in whatever way. And that might come out in different ways. Some people might come out as being brash and abrasive, and some people might come out as trying to hide. And it's like a self fulfilling prophecy of still not being noticed. And they wish they were noticed. But either way, the problem gets solved because I am noticed because I notice myself and I love myself. Does that answer your question?
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, you brought up a word there that I've been actually thinking about over the last few weeks, contentment. And I struggle with this phraseology. And the way I've of late come to think about it is contentment versus complacency. Like, I want to be content with who I am, with the things I have, with my life as it is. I don't want to be complacent, right? So I still want to pursue growth and learning and more in materialistic ways as well. I want to be able to have experiences and go do things. And so yeah, I really like that word contentment because I think it does bring about thoughts of and just comfort with who you are. This may parallel what you just walked through, but in your coaching practice, so I'm assuming you went through your your early career, education, talking about personal growth and performance and things like that. Now you have more of a vocational practice where you're practicing. Did you go through a process or what process did you go through and how did that develop into a framework that you use today with clients or anyone really in particular?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to be very honest. I think I'm an honest person. I'm still iterating. That's one of the, that's one of the, that's one of, I would say, benefits of being someone that's content and not, I'm not trying to put on airs of what I am or what I am not. So if I'm trying something and I see something better, I'm like, I'll try that. Like, I'll do something different. So my frameworks are always around, like, I wanted to write a book like a year ago, and I started writing the book and I wrote a whole bunch of it. And I was just like, now I'm looking back, I'm like, I want to write a different book. And I just, and one of my coaches was like, don't scrap the book. Like, you could still potentially use it, parts of it, or use it on another setting or whatever it is. Just keep it. Don't throw it in the garbage. Don't delete everything. But as a human being, especially as I like to live what I preach, and that is to be present and to want to manifest. So we're always iterating and we're always evolving as a human. We should be always growing. Like one of the biggest trick questions that people ask are like, oh, where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? If you are where you thought you should be in 5 years, 5 years from now, you totally failed as a human. Like, you should be doing things that you never imagined, and you should be doing things that weren't in your realm of reality. And just because, and it wasn't because you planned it. It was just because you learned. And as you learn and as you grow, you just do something different. And that's okay. You're not tied to that, whatever it was, and you're anchoring yourself to your 5 year plan or whatever it is, which I think dovetails nicely with what you guys, what I understand what you guys are helping people do, where you want to manifest a certain amount of freedom, real freedom with your investments and with your real estate and all of that. So
Mhm.
it's the same idea where don't live your bubble of what you don't have agency about. Create something. Go be creative. Go do something big. And I want to be clear, like, I'm not looking down on anyone. That's also a very big piece of it also, that I don't, and this sometimes bothers people. Like, I don't criticize people as a rule. Like, when I say these, even if I'm saying it and making an observation, like, I'm not saying it as a criticism. There was one guy, one time I was walking with someone, and this person drove by, it was like 2 in the morning, and it was a residential area. It was in my neighborhood, quiet, very quiet. And this person drives by, a teenager, blasting music, like really loud. And the muffler wasn't going, so it was like really loud. And the person was like irate, like, 2 in the morning. What is going on with this person? Are they nuts? Do they not have any compassion or sympathy? What are the baby sleeping or whatever it is? And I'm like, yeah, probably, he should, he should be more compassionate and empathetic to the people sleeping. Totally. What if you're not angry at this person? Like, it's a teenager, doesn't know, like, he has to learn. And there was, couldn't fathom, like, I wasn't angry and I wasn't criticizing the kid. And it's like that sort of concept where it's like, I can understand that what's happening is not okay, but I can also understand the other side. And I
Mhm.
can also understand that we can learn together. And there's so many things that you can hold because you're not tied to one vision or one version of reality.
Yeah, I like that. I can appreciate, and also I share the same philosophy or view or whatever. I'm a work in progress. I like to be a work in process, but understanding that you are iterating. What's the framework that you have today that you work with in clients, and or do you have? I'm assuming there's at least a framework of sorts.
Yeah,
Somebody
yeah,
different, but
definitely. So I created a whole framework, like really the full on framework, but now I just simplified it to just like a very simple process where I just help you to become aware. So the way to do that are these little tips or these little, let's let's call it
exercises
like
maybe, or
exercises. I'll go ahead and exit because a lot of times people are not self aware, right? So they're just reacting to information. So they're taking in information. Like, for example, like people are, let's pretend like our human body is us, right? But deep inside of us is our energy and our emotions. So like let's pretend like our skin is really a screen, meaning things leak through and we react to that information and that energy that's coming through to us without considering it. We're just reacting. And that perpetuates a process of reaction, meaning we don't have agency over the situation at all. We're just like, this information is coming in and my information is going out. And it's just a cycle, right? It's a cycle of destruction, or definitely not productive or in any way. And and it usually is a spiral, right? Because no one ever took the time to exit the spiral. So one way to exit that spiral and that cycle is just to become curious, like to be curious without an agenda. And when we approach any situation with that curiosity, it changes the whole entire framework of the way we're receiving the information. Meaning, we're not reacting anymore to the information because we first need to learn about the information. So someone yells at us, or someone doesn't do their job, or someone comes late to work, or somebody blows up our deal, whatever it is. And before we get angry, before we send an angry email, before we slam the phone down, before we yell at the guy, we first find out what happened. Just really just what happened. Not like, how could you do this? It's just like, what happened? Why did that happen? Or in marriage, it's very common. The husband and the wife, no marriage is perfect. It's okay, the husband wanted something, the wife didn't do it, or the wife wanted something, the husband didn't do it. And then sometimes people are like, I asked you 20 times, you didn't listen, you didn't wash dishes. I don't know. So before jumping into that zone, it could just be like, I'm just curious, like, why didn't you wash the dishes? And the response will probably not be because I hate you. Probably won't be, right? It will probably be I forgot, or I got busy, or I really wanted to, and whatever it is. And then, okay, now we're being relational again. We didn't just immediately dive into this downward spiral. And the same way in business, like I've had so many conversations with employees where it's, oh, what happened? Why were you late again? Again is a little passive aggressive, but let's say like 3 days in a row. It's, oh, why were you late? It's 3 days in a row. What happened? It's, oh, you don't understand. I don't have a car. My car broke down and I'm just like taking the bus and it's taking me so much longer. I'm like, oh, wow, terrible. I feel so bad. I hope, how can I help? Like now it's relational again because I want to learn more about what's going on. And that also helps. Now we're going to move to the next stage of, let's say, someone becoming that sort of human being. That also helps them to create boundaries because then you start learning what is okay and what's not okay, but on a real level of relationally, as opposed to just, it's not okay because it bothers me and I'm getting angry, but I don't do anything about it. And then I only do something about it when it's overwhelming and I'm just totally up to here. But then whatever happens next anyway is not the way that I probably should have handled it. And I'll scream at the person and then fire them in front of the whole entire everyone. It's just a disaster, right? These things happen because people aren't aware of what's going on. So the next level would be like, okay, it's not okay for me, if, my employee is absent every day or late every day. So then I have to now decide what would make it okay, or what can I do to help in order to help. But what if they don't want to help themselves? Now it's okay. So this is what I need from an employee. Now you start learning about your values. Now you start learning about yourself even more. It's all about just learning more about yourself and the way you relate to the world and the way that everything is happening. And you suddenly become more and more of someone with agency, of someone that has control and someone that is guiding your actions based on your values and based on your mission of what you want to accomplish in the world, which is you're manifesting now. You're literally just growing as a human being just by being curious. That's just step one of breaking out of that cycle. If you stay there, if you really try to stay there, and it's hard, it's not easy because we don't like it the 17th time that the guy didn't answer my message, and the 17th time the guy didn't answer my message, I should probably stop relying on that person. But let's say it's like the second time, the third time, and my deal was blown up because I was waiting for that response and it didn't work. So now it's like, I need to now take stock, right? Instead of getting angry at the person because maybe the guy can't help it. Maybe the guy is just completely overwhelmed, completely doesn't have his stuff together. And he's just, I'm sorry. Like maybe he'll apologize, maybe he won't. And you're like, I don't have to work with the guy. I won't recommend him to people, but also I will still be relational. It's not about person, it's about action. Didn't work for me. No problem. Like I have a lot of people that I don't trust them to do a job for me. And I won't recommend them to people, but I won't scream at them. I won't badmouth them. If I see them on the street, like they'll probably think that everything's okay and everything is okay relationally. Like
Yeah.
I like them as a human being. I just don't trust them to do a job. The big difference.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's if you really extrapolate that out and think about if somebody were going to perform surgery on you, right? Some people are appropriate, some people are not. It doesn't. You can still be friendly and interactive with them.
Yeah. And even if they do something that hurt me, not a reflection of them as a human being or on me as a human being. It's a reflection of their ability to fulfill responsibilities as a human being. So I will not be, as I said, like I won't get angry at the person, even if they X, Y, Z.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Obviously, take it to an extreme, and then that's a good question. I don't know, like someone that, whatever, but
Yes, I'm a firm believer that 99.9 times out of 100, whether it's people or situations, you teased on it earlier, or you actually mentioned it earlier, but People typically aren't acting with bad intentions. They aren't acting to hurt you or to be cruel or mean. It's just that you perceive the action that way, or they were maybe insensitive to thinking through the full spectrum of things. Okay, yes, there are some situations where people act with bad intentions and do that, but I think they're very rare and very few in general. So it is a great perspective to somewhat, I can't remember if this is a seven habits creed, but seek first to understand, right? To just check in, ask those kind of things and before flying off the handle.
Yeah, for sure. It seemed like you wanted to say something earlier.
Yes, I have a question. I'm very curious about one aspect. I believe that the desire to grow can coexist with the fear of unknown. Like we desire to grow, but and we desire to find ourselves, and we desire maybe to start a new business or do something different to exit that spiral. But then there is a fear of, what if I'm gonna fail? What if I'm not gonna find myself? What if this is not gonna work? So how do you help people manage those things, manage this fear of failure, and really take that plunge into exiting the spiral?
It's a really good question. Definitely. Because we have to understand other things about ourselves as human beings also. This is getting a little bit deep. Okay. So let's buckle up and put
Nice.
on our scuba gear and all that. Sometimes the desire to grow is not coming from me trying to manifest myself. Rather, it's coming from me running away from something. And when that's the case, then we will have a much more extreme level of that fear that you're referring to, because we don't have agency over this situation. We're trying to run away from something. We're not trying to achieve something. So if we're running away from something, so then the fears are all valid. What if this doesn't work? Then whatever I'm trying to run away from will follow me, whatever it is that I'm running away from. If we flip it a little bit, if we tweak it a little bit and we say, we're here to learn, right? We're here to just become better human beings. And you want to try something new? That's great. And there's a famous acronym for failure is failing is failing. I don't even remember anymore. Fail quickly, whatever, fail forward.
Yeah.
Like all of these were first attempt at learning. That's fail, right? First attempt at something like that. First attempt in learning, whatever. Nice acronyms that people come up with, but
Right.
that's the truth. Failure is really just my first try. If you're not failing, then you're not growing and you're not learning and you're not stretching yourself. And another, it's even more so if we're trying to run away from something, we might leap a little more than we actually are capable of. And then we will actually exacerbate the challenge that we have because we will fail, but we will feel that failure very deeply because I really can't do this. So I'm stuck. But if we are actually trying to learn and we're just doing that little stretch where we're actually learning in the process, then that fear of failure won't be as intense. Of course, we need to pay attention to the fear of failure because sometimes we shouldn't do something. You don't want to run in the middle of traffic. That's dangerous, right? You might fail if you try to play Frogger as you run through the highway, right? Jumping from lane to lane. So we need to be careful, but if it's holding us back, we need to explore that. We need to learn more about ourselves. What am I actually scared of? Am I scared of losing the past? What does the future look like? What is my manifesting myself and actually just learning more about myself? How does that feel? Oh, that feels great. All right. So what would be if I took another step? No problem. No, another step, a small step, just taking those little small steps and failing quickly, failing small. Those failures are good failures. That's one aspect of it. And also it's actually realize what we're doing is manifesting ourselves to our true self and to becoming something that we don't even know is possible. Like our power is limitless as human beings. Like we think we know, but we really don't know. Like we know based on what we know. There's a famous line that I think Donald Rumsfeld said when they grilled him on WMDs in Iraq. There's known knowns and there's known unknowns and there's unknown unknowns. Like he just went on some ramble, but it's true. We don't know what we don't. We think we know. We think we know what's best for us. We think we know what we're capable of, but we have no idea. If we really lean into what we can do, what we're capable of, just by being curious, just by being a lifelong learner and trying to just keep trying, it's really limitless what's possible.
I love that. And I think that I believe that there's a little bit of faith that needs to come with in our journey. I remember when I grew up, I heard it from my parents and from my leaders that it's better to deal with the devil than to deal with the devil you don't know. And at some point I was asking myself, what if I step out there? I'm going to actually meet angels, not devils. And
Nice
really,
reframe. Yeah.
really reframing all these things that we hear growing up, they're so sealed in our brains. Having a little faith that things
Yeah,
might work
100%.
out.
A
It's
hundred
more,
percent. What I'm saying, and I tell this to people, what I'm saying is not my own truth that is to the exclusion of everyone else. It's my experience approaching truth. And everyone, when you get in touch with your truth, and again, now we're really going a little on tangent again, but if we really get into really what the truth is, like our manifestation, that will look different to everyone. And that will be based on the way that you relate to the world and based on your experiences. So if somebody has faith, absolutely lean into the faith. But you don't even have to have faith the way that you're saying it. You just have to be like curious and want to learn. I personally do have faith. Also, like I do have faith, but not you don't have to. You can just be curious.
yeah, it's one of the first things that we do with our any client that comes into our coaching program is we like to begin with the end state, what are their goals, but more importantly, what's the why behind their goals? What are they seeking out of a new pursuit or what land investing and land flipping, even for us, it's a means, it's a way of creating and developing more freedom in our life and bringing in money that we use to live and to reinvest into other things. But it's really, for us, it's a vehicle to get us to what we want, which is a flexible, free lifestyle, the ability to curate our days the way we want them, to look at things down the road that we want to deliver and stuff. And yeah, it's a great concept and it's one that serves us really well with clients because it does anchor them on, okay, what's possible? What do I want out of this? And it helped us when we were on our personal journey, and we like to weave that into our program because when those low moments come or when obstacles or resistance comes, as it does with any new venture or pursuit, it helps pull you through that because, okay, this is why I'm doing this. This is what I want. And so I will do what's necessary to overcome this obstacle and get to the other side. It's a great approach. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another scenario that we encounter is, and we personally went through this as well, but like land flipping, it's a lesser known real estate strategy. And sometimes the finances behind land can be inconceivable. Like we double or more our money on land deals. And it's really just the nature of how we go about buying our land deals, but it can seem irrational. And so people come into the program and there's skepticism. There's doubts that they're going to be able to execute. And what do you have strategies to help people with overcoming skepticism and doubts and building a little more confidence along the way? Is there an approach that you would recommend?
Can you? Yes, I'm going to answer the way that I understand the question. And if I misunderstood the question, feel free to redirect.
Sure.
So I understand the question too. If somebody has doubts about veracity or the practicality of the application of this process, like, I don't believe that's even possible. I feel like you're just pulling my chain. So what I would say is you don't have to believe anyone. Like, I agree. Don't believe whoever is telling you this. Learn more and listen more. Listen to the podcast, another 7 episodes, and just see how people have been doing it. Try it yourself. Like, you don't have to believe what the other person did. In fact, I would say if you do believe it and go on it based on your faith of that person, you're going to feel a lot of resentment when it fails the first time, which it probably does a lot of the time. And the second time, which it probably does a lot of the time. And then when it hits, though, you're going to be like, oh, okay, you're not even going to feel the satisfaction of yourself. You're like, oh, yeah, it was him. But if you actually just keep trying and you're like, I don't believe anyone. I'm going to learn more about how land deals work. I'm going to learn about this. I'm going to speak to everyone I know that works in real estate. I'm going to go to the people that I know works in land deals. And I tell them, help me out here. I'm trying to understand. I could just buy it for, how do I purchase it at that sort of valuation? Like, how do I sell it then? What, I have to hold it? What do I do when I'm holding it? Help me understand the process and then try it and keep trying it and keep trying it. And then at a certain point, you'll see, it does work. Imagine that. And I did this. There's a famous, not really exactly relevant, but I just popped into my mind. There's a comic where this guy is holding a pot or something. He's like, I made this. And then someone walks over to him and he says it again. He's like, I made this. And he shows him the pot. And then the guy takes the pot for him and he's like, I made this. And he walks away. Like, where it's that, I think, is the process where you don't want people to do that. You don't want people to like just take it and be like, oh, because Mike told me, I'm just like, now it's mine. It's no, make it yours. Take the information that I'm giving you, build your mindset, build your skill level, do it, iterate, make it your own, then actually do it on your own. That's the goal. you don't want to just be holding the person's hand all day long. That meaning, even as a student, you don't want to be calling your mentor 18 times a day every time you do something. You want to learn and then call your mentor later and be like, "This is what I tried. Tell me what I did right, what I did wrong." Be a learner as opposed to a copycat or whatever it is. And copying is good. You can try to copy and see what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Obviously, does
Yeah,
that
those are
answer your
definitely.
question?
Yes, it did. My question, so there were two layers to your answer. One was more before someone decides to take the pursuit, there's certainly some amount of education and evidence gathering and different things before someone takes the leap. I was really coming at it more from the angle of someone who started the process and getting them through to a final success. And you did touch on the need to iterate and to just have some tenacity and some grit, to use some words there that we use. And one of the things we try to do is to, as with any real estate cycle that goes from purchase to sale, there's a time period in between. Land is one of the asset classes that it's the shortest. Like we can buy a property and sell it the same day or the next day and make a profit by nature of how we do the business. But sometimes it takes weeks, a couple of months to get through the end to end process, especially if you're learning it for the first time. And so, one of the things we try to do is to set up a series of small wins along the way that may not be the ultimate win, but it's proof of progress. So you're making smaller wins along the way. But yeah, so you touched on the fact and the need to just keep iterating and keep trying and to have some amount of tenacity and grit. And a part of that on us is setting expectations on up front that it's not an overnight success story. It's not, there are going to be these ups and downs and it's going to take a certain amount of time. On average, it takes this amount of time. There's leading edge and lagging edge and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, you definitely covered it in both scenarios, I would say.
So far be it for me to tell you how to do your job. I'm sure you're doing it perfectly, and I don't know how how it works
Sure.
in your group. I'm sure it's fantastic, but you did mention that too. And what I'm doing is I'm telling people take agents, right? So I'm talking to your student and telling them you need to take agency. You need to iterate, and you need to do it. And it sounded like from what you're saying is that you actually build that into your program where you're showing them the small wins. So you're helping them see that you're helping them find that agency within themselves. You're like, see, that's a small win for you, and that's a small win for you, and that's so good job. Keep that up. After a while, they're gonna be like, I can do this. Great, thanks so much, and that's perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely helps keep momentum and motivation going along the way, and it's definitely one of the things that we try to do. And I am by no means raising my hand and saying we're running a perfect program, but we're also iterating and learning and seeing what works. But yeah, for just I haven't really thought about it in the frame of agency, but we have great success stories, and those success stories are, we call them the action takers, or the, which is by default agency. It's the people who encounter obstacles or turbulence and they find solutions. They're go-getters. And those are the clients we love to bring on board, are the ones that you can almost see it before someone signs up. There's a personality that shines through where we almost know, wow, this person's really going to be set up and run. And yeah, it's that agency, personal agency. And that's in any endeavor, right across the board. Somebody that believes they are in control of maybe not everything, but they're controlling what they control and even influencing things that they don't control. Those are the ones that shine brightest and typically have the most success. So it's a great advice. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. There's
And
on the flip side, you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just about also people that reframe, they don't look at things, or if they don't have the success that they want right away, they don't reframe it, they don't label it as failure, but as a learning experience. That's what I wanted to add.
Yeah, totally. True. I would say what potentially someone that is not yet ready for your program and a way for them to become ready is a lot of times people convince themselves that they're making progress by learning and not doing
Mm,
anything. Meaning they'll watch YouTube videos, they'll listen to podcasts, and they're like, I'm learning, I'm growing, but they
yeah.
don't actually try it. So what I would say is to people that are listening to this podcast and they want to join your program, just do something. Like just dip your toe in the water, try something like before deciding that this is what you want to do, just like maybe I'll try something and then reach out and be like, hey, I would love to learn more about your program. And this is what I've done. And this is my journey so far. Like I've really tried a few things. It really helps for them to set themselves up for success where they're not coming in and saying, Mike, save me. Okay, I'm not, I could try, but I'm not
Right.
sure that this is the best fit.
Love it. We probably need to wrap this up here. Let's circle back around with you and your program. So, if anybody's curious to learn a little bit more and potentially partner with you in certain circumspect, what's the best way to get in touch? Or is there more information they can grab, online resources or things like that?
Yeah, sure. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, and I'm actually currently building out a resource deck, I guess we could call it, of like just different toolkits and different surveys and quizzes and things that you can do just to assess yourself and some little instruction guides and things like that. But for now, definitely just reach out and connect. And I love, as you see, I just love talking about this stuff. I enjoy it. I enjoyed our conversation. It's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I could go on all day. We also are personal development junkies. It's what we like. It's what pulled us through when we started this venture. We didn't, our coach was not, our coach's mindset was teaching us the nuts and bolts of the business and not really the baggage, let's say, that goes along with it. So we had to rely on each other to pull us through, and not just each other. No man is doing these things alone, right? We're all standing on the shoulders of all the people who came before us and came up with these great ideas. It brings up a point, like what type of people are you working with, or who should reach out to you? Or is it individuals? Is it teams, institutions all across the board? Is there a preferred?
It's a great question. And currently, what I'm loving is helping people that are new into the C suite or director level,
Mhm.
and they're feeling a little bit nervous. They're feeling overwhelmed at the different stages. Am I going to succeed? Oh, no, I'm not succeeding. That sort of lit based
Yeah.
where I will help you figure it out before you fail. And that's really what I enjoy doing because like it's similar to like what you're talking about, where like if somebody's coming to me and saying, I don't have any agency at all, and I need you to save me. And listen, I would love to help you, and I'm happy to talk to people, but I don't know if it would be a perfect fit because I can refer you to someone that works with people on just learning about the concept, which I will tell you. But again, people that don't have that agency, they're like, oh, great. And
Yeah.
they don't do the work. And this is a lot of work. The same way where what you do is a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It's a lot of commitment. It's a lot of investment in so many different ways. It's similar here where, you want to become something, you want to become someone. Like this is not something that like you wake up tomorrow and you're like, okay, this is who I am now. I need to work on myself. Like I've been doing this for 10 years. This is me who I am. And I want to help people do that. So you can reach out to me, whoever you are, and I will have a wonderful conversation with you because I love talking to people. But specifically people that are new into that C-suite level, I enjoy that very much because they
Okay.
really thrive in that
That's
environment.
great. Super valuable resource as well, because yeah, a lot of responsibility comes in those roles.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people are new to the experience. So love that focus. We'll make sure and get your contact information in the show notes for anybody that does want to reach out and have a conversation and put into practice some great work and some tips. We certainly thank you for coming on the show. We, speaking of thanks, to end our episodes with gratitude. While we're certainly grateful that you shared a slice of your day and a lot of your expertise with the audience, if there is any one or ones in particular that you'd like to take a moment to express a bit of gratitude as well, we like to end the show that way, as I said.
So I very much reciprocally that's the word, but I
We get the
very much
gist.
appreciate you. And I very much appreciate the truth is I appreciate everyone that I come into contact with because just I love learning and I love iterating. So no matter what the result of the conversation or the relationship is, I learn something and I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's as it really should be if we're all present and curious and taking every encounter as that opportunity. Yeah, I love that. That's a new ending on that. We appreciate you coming on the show, as I said, and wish you all the best, man. And especially, I don't think we touched on this, but you're calling us from halfway around the world. There, it's evening in Israel, and
So
certainly appreciate the time you took to share some pearls of wisdom.
Yes, thank you.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right, all the best, David. Thanks. Bye bye. For those of you joining us today, we hope you enjoyed this time in the Champions Corner as much as we did. Got some awesome takeaways, and most importantly, will take action to continue living your best life and maximizing your potential. Mindset is such an important aspect of life, and when coupled with action, delivers undeniably powerful results.
Please subscribe to the podcast to hear from more great guests and get the latest mindset mastery insights and cash flow matchups.
Again, thank you so much for investing your time with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Cash Flow Fight Club podcast.